Hello, and welcome to Returning to Us, a podcast that gives you strategies and tips for how to hack your brain, build and strengthen relationships, and to teach people how to recognize and neutralize their emotional states. I'll discuss emotional intelligence and regulation, how food and exercise impact the body and brain, and share lessons from my own lived experiences. I'm Lauren Spiegelmeier, the founder of the Behavior Hub, which is an organization that works to reduce the stressors of raising and educating children through a brain and biology-based lens. In these episodes, I'll share stories and strategies from my own life, work, and research, answer listener questions, and wrap it up with a try-it-at-home tip. Decades worth of information in just minutes. You ready? Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Returning to Us. I am interviewing one of my favorite humans, Elizabeth Ralph, who, the best way to describe our relationship is probably like money mentor, money coach, someone who changed my belief about money, and not in a way that like, oh, I have a financial advisor. This is like changed my deep core rooted beliefs about money, which has then impacted so many other areas, opened up so many other internal areas of my life. So a gem to have found, but I wanted to bring her on here to interview her, share some knowledge and the work that she's doing, because I'd love for any and all of you to have exposure to that. So Elizabeth, thanks for making time today, joining us, and I will let you share a little bit more about you, your background, who you are, so I don't botch that.
Thank you so much. Wow. Amazing. I feel the same way about you. I'm like, wow, cannot believe that we cross paths, so many common threads here. But I worked in finance, as you know, for over a decade on an energy trading floor, with that high security, the badge thing and everything, where you're going in, you're like, oh my gosh, it was basically my whole life. You don't even take a personal call at that point. So I knew when I was in that, I was like, oh, this is a great situation, great job, but I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. So, it dawned on me that I was going to need to buy my way out of that. And the best way to do that is to put a financial strategy together and work towards financial freedom. So I was able to check two big boxes. That was long-term retirement and then covering my basic cost of living. And once I did that, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm out of here. So did that and then became an entrepreneur. I started a financial story. It was actually an accident. I was at a kid's birthday party and just having a couple of beers around the fire, and someone said, what do you do? And it was kind of a weird time too, because like I had gone from like this big, financial title kind of thing, and you're like, into basically being, well, I'm writing a book. And so at that time, I was writing a financial book on, the merging of spirituality and finance, which is basically the way that I teach money. And she was like, oh, can I hire you? And I'm like, no, I don't do this. I just like to talk about it. And so long story short, one thing led to the other. And, I worked with her, and then 6 months later, she sent me in a letter in the mail and some photographs. And she and her partner had just bought their dream home in Big Bear, like a log cabin, and they were going to take their kids there, as that was her dream, is to have her kids be able to go there on weekends and have the whole experience and everything. So I was like, if this is not a sign, I don't know what is. So right after that, I started Financial Story and just started teaching people how to think differently about money, because wealthy people, they think different about money. And I think a lot of people get kind of left in the dark when it comes to money, and they feel like it's difficult and that they can't do it, or in order to make more money, they have to take on all this risk. And so I decided just to really demysticize finance and also bring in the spiritual element, because that's just who I am. And that's what got me here, really, is the combination of the two, really being strongly rooted into what I want and customizing it and just using the tools to build that up. So
That's
Well,
awesome.
here we are, like 3 years later, been running Financial Story 3 years later.
It just dawned on me when you were saying that. I'm like, oh wow, we view money much like we do mental health. Like, it's a thing we don't. It's taboo. We don't talk openly about it. And I
Right.
am seeing and hope it continues to change in our society, because both of those things, which are very connected, need to be talked about every
I
day.
agree.
It's part of my
Yes.
life. So, okay. So where did like the spark and the passion come from? So I know like you shared a little about your background, but like what was like, I'm sure that that conversation at the kids party kind of started it, but what was the driver that was like, this is it, this is right, this is why I need to do this?
Yeah. Well, I have a strong connection to animals, horses specifically. And I had already kind of thought about, I want to buy my way out of this. But then I was like, well, how am I really going to do this? Because like most of us aren't motivated by money. Most of us need like, what's our strong why? What do we really want? Do we want more time with our kids? Do we want to be able to travel? Whatever. So and my why, I really didn't even have to look too far. It came to me like with a crash and a bang. So I ended up, someone had a video on their phone of a horse actually um, being in an awful situation across the border down in Mexico, because they actually ship horses across the border and for slaughter, because we don't do that here.
Okay.
And I saw this horrible video and I was like, my first thought was, why did I watch this video? Like, I didn't even want to see that video. I was almost like, at first I was like kind of irritated by it. And then I completely caught myself and I went, you know what? No, I saw this for a reason. And I could not get that video out of my head. And I know horses, and I know that they are herd animals. They're very, very close in terms of their families.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually, they look to each other, for direction and all that stuff. And so when horses are in that situation and one of them is getting, like they're all in a chute and one of them is going up to be slaughtered, all of the horses behind it have to live through that, basically agonize and live through that with them for how many hours they're in there, knowing that they're seeing their family die and they're going to die. And so anyways, it just hit me at such a hard level. And I know that even sounds brutal to even be talking about this, but it's just real, and that hit me so hard that I was like, wait, what am I doing? I can't, I could donate money to these organizations, but I can't really do anything if I'm locked in an office for 12, 14 hours a day. So immediately after that, what I did is I said, you know what, part of my financial journey is going to be donating to horses. So my wife and I started going 1 weekend a month. We would go and we would visit horse rescues and we would meet them and meet with the owners. And these were all nonprofits. And we would figure out, what are you guys doing here? And then we would donate money and move on to the next one. Well, we learned a lot. And one of the things that I learned is that a lot of these are inefficiently run. And some of these aren't even upstanding organizations, to put it mildly. So then I was like, oh my gosh, here I am with all this, business knowledge. Part of what I did was I actually bought, worked for a big company and I bought smaller companies. So I was like, this is just, all these arrows are pointing towards me doing this on a greater level. And so our very first rental property that we bought, we knew we were buying it as a vacation rental. This was back in 2012 when nobody knew what the word Airbnb even was. I had to explain to people, I'm like, no, VRBO does not mean it's not BYBO. It's not bring your own bottle. It's like, this is like a place kind of like a hotel, And so what happened is it ended up being like amazing, because immediately we started donating 20% of our profits to horse rescues. And then we'd tell people about that. And then more and more people came in that liked horses, and they started like leaving cash in envelopes and all of that. And so it kind of created itself. And, fast forward to, it was about 8 years of running that. And, we then created like a business of our own. So we bought a property and we started helping horses directly here. And so it's kind of exploded, but it's always been the backbone of why I do what I do.
It's so interesting that that came up today, because I just got off of an interview with a woman who runs a program called Stable Moments, which she has like a curriculum that she created that she mentors and sells and coaches and teaches people that have farms about how to use horses to heal trauma, and not even just trauma, but stress. And it's a really good program. And she has a background in social work. And I'm like hearing her explain the program, like this program has got it right. Like she has all the things that they need. And I was explaining that it's really for anyone. These things that she's teaching people to do to with horses to help kids is anyone dealing with stress, like the therapeutic approach. This is going to calm anyone. But one of the biggest things that stuck out there was how horses are so emotionally intelligent. Like there are few animals that really, or just beings, things, living things that really kind of like read energy and reflect energy back to you. So she's using the reflective nature of the horse's energy to teach people about their own emotional states. Like, look at how your energy is so heightened right now. That is making the horse anxious. Look at the horse's response. Bring your energy down. Your energy comes down and the horse calms down. And it's just really bringing awareness into your energetic state. And for kids, it's hard because they don't, it's hard for them to see that without seeing it, and they can see it in the horse.
Yes, I love that. And oh my gosh, the synchronicity of all of this, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we have a horse here who he does really, really well with kids, and he has that very, very grounding energy. And actually a friend of mine who she has a kid who is autistic, and she brings him here when he just has all these problems with school and he's just on overload and he cannot deal with it anymore. And this horse is so amazing that he's able to actually go in the stall and spend alone time with the horse. And it's interesting because you can hear him. He tells the horse all of the stories that he can't say to other people.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, horses are such a gift to us. And I'm so happy to hear that you interviewed someone like that. That's absolutely incredible. People who are doing that. So having programs like that solves kind of just what I was talking about as well, because these horses that they get shipped over the border for slaughter, like, we're not talking about like older horses that are sick. We're talking about young or even older horses that still could have so much to give, have so much life in them, and want to be a companion.
Yep.
And horses are so trusting of humans that it's heartbreaking that we load them in the trailer and they don't even know where they're going, and all of that. So amazing, Lauren.
Yes, it's awesome. It's exciting. And the lesson here being find your why and lean into and live into your why, and everything will slowly start to fall in place if you allow it to.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And part of building wealth is when you find that why, part of building it is getting yourself out of the way. That's kind of the way that I looked at it, right? So if I have covered the basic bones of my lifestyle, then that frees me up to do more in the world. And I think people have this deep desire to go out and do more, or manage their energy in a way that allows them to do more and to have more time. But what they don't understand is there's this missing component, because like it or not, you're going to need somewhat of a financial foundation to do that. Otherwise, you're always going to be making decisions, money decisions, that are dictated by either someone else or circumstances that are outside of you. And the biggest power move that you can do is to, take that power back by moving towards financial freedom, and use your why as that magic carpet ride, that excitement factor to do it.
I agree. I love that. Okay. So then thinking about all of that and getting people to shift and change, what do you think right now, or what would you like to see as the paradigm shift? Like what's society, what's this generation or the generations to come? What's the block? What's the current block?
It's normalized that whenever the money comes in the door, that we're supposed to spend it, or it's okay to spend it, or, it's normalized to not value taking a portion of that money that comes in the door and actually growing it and amplifying it for your own benefit. And this has been happening for generations. And honestly, like, people not doing that has helped our economy a lot, because it is better for our economy if people spend everything that they have. because then you're keeping the money in the system and you're keeping it going. And oftentimes you're even paying interest in order to do that. Right. And that's another thing, like, people should not feel bad if they have credit cards, because you've been taught that that's really what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to borrow and you're supposed to leverage this credit in order to support your lifestyle. So I think really the big paradigm shift coming up is that I already am seeing this happen, is that people are going, wait, that's better for the economy, but that's not better for myself or my family or me doing really what I want in life. And so really the big thing is, and just for someone just starting out with this, is to ask yourself, like, what percentage can I take? And, if the answer immediately comes to you like none, well, then that's a problem anyways, because things happen in life, and that means that you're leveraging credit to even cover the emergencies and the mishaps, right? So that's already an indicator to, sort of relook at that. But I've said this before to people that, like, if the government increased your taxes by 10%, everybody would figure it out.
Yeah.
But how come we can't find 10% for our own benefit, for our own protection, for our own independence, for our own children, to be able to actually go out and amplify that? We can do better. We can set the bar higher. So I think that's really the shift.
Yeah, I agree. And if you tell yourself that that is the case, that will be your case. So
yeah,
making that shift of like, okay, it seems impossible. It seems I can't take anything else. I can't find anything else. But yeah, like, pause yourself, slow down, slowly roll, and really think about that. Like, what micro shift can I make? Because if I open my mind up to that, I might find an answer.
Yeah. And wealth is really built on micro decisions, as you know.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just, there was I put something on Instagram yesterday. Warren Buffett said that it was actually, if you're sitting in the shade, if you're sitting under the shade of a tree, it's because you planted it long ago. Yeah. It's so true. If we literally just applied that to everything, even emotions, what you talk about, right? Like, this is all stuff that is so incredibly deeply valuable on a fundamental level that might not show up as results tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that it's not there.
Right. Yeah. And I think we are so stuck in this impulsive state because we're overstimulated. There's too much going on. We're stressed out, jobs, and we're like, what do I need to do right now? And we're not slowing down to think about a little bit more of the long term, especially like my generations to follow me, I feel like are so impulsive from like overexposure to technology and relational poverty and just all the things that regulate people. So they're like, yeah, I'll deal with like money and retirement later. And then it's like suddenly something big happens, or later is here, later is now. And we're like, what do I do now?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Which is a great segue to, okay, so my work is more in emotions. Your work is more spiritual and money. How do the two interconnect?
Oh my gosh, such a great question. And they are so closely related. Money is energy. And so, if we keep our money at an arm's length distance, it's just like a relationship or ignoring something that we don't want to deal with. Yep. If anything that we keep at a arm's length distance is going to energetically be at an arm's length distance from us as well. Like, for instance, like if you, let's say you want to go and meet a friend on Friday at a restaurant, and you're like, well, I might see you at 6, or I might be there at 8, or I might not show up at all. Well, like, what are you going to get out of that relationship? Yeah, that's what people do with their money. They want their money to show up when they need their money, but they don't have time or the energy to actually look at it, because a lot of times it feels bad to look at money. Yeah. Right. If it brings up a lot of emotions for people, it's like, I didn't make the right decision. I should have done this different. Oh my gosh, I don't have enough money. So being able to neutralize and regulate your emotions is everything with money, because the wealthiest people in the world do not make money decisions based on fear. In fact, one of the most famous lines from a trader was, someone said, how do I know at the end of the day if you have been successful? And he goes, that I've been successful if you don't know if I've made money or not. In other words, like if I continue that neutrality, because a neutral place is where you make the best decisions, always, always. And building wealth is literally just making a handful of key decisions. That's really what it is. People think you have to go out there and be looking at stocks all the time.
Yeah.
You have to take all this risk. You really don't. You have to make a handful of key decisions at the right time, but you have to be highly aware to do that. It's not going to just come by accident. And like you have to be able to spot the opportunity and then make a decision.
Yep.
Money's not going to wait on you.
Yep.
To him and haw. And money does not like you to be uncertain and to, when you get in your fears. I was just on a call this morning with someone who has made 2 big decisions based on fear. And she's struggling with that now because she's like, those 2 decisions were so huge that they would have literally set her and her family up for their entire lives. And she's like, it's because it's not that I don't know better. It's because I get into my emotions and I cannot make a clear-cut decision.
Yep.
So this work that you're doing is setting people up for more money.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to neutralize the emotions. Even when I first started, in entrepreneurship kind of prepared me for it a little bit because you're so up and down, and there's, you get no's and disappointments, and if you go too high up and you sink too far down, you're unstable, like on a roller coaster. It makes you ill. So for me, investing that first little bit, especially like stocks, I was like, this is so foreign to me, this is so new to me, and I was like, oh no, it's going down, and just like all these emotions around it. And I had to really do the internal work with you and through the program of like, just breathe. Like it's one, a couple cents or a couple $. It's just the green and red lines that are freaking you out. 2, this isn't something that you are shifting and changing every day. You just need to trust it, because this is a longer term, at least my approach right now is a little bit longer term. So trust that, your intuition is leading you to the right choices, that you're making choices that are aligned. And when things go up and down, just, breathe through it and let that go and work through it. And don't just like you said, don't resist it. Like, oh,
Yes. And realize that your identity is tied to money. That's the way that we are raised. That's the way that we're brought up, is like, you got to go out there and make more money. And that says something about you. Or if you don't have any money, that says something about you. So it's really difficult to take a person who has believed that and connected their identity to it and then go, oh, here, open a stock account. Because what are you going to do? You're going to connect that. And so the best thing that you can do is don't pat yourself on the back when you make money, and don't beat yourself up when you don't, because just because you've made money in the stock market doesn't make you a financial wizard. And just because you've lost it does not mean that you don't know what you're doing. Right? It has absolutely nothing to do with you as a person. And I think that's when you can get to that place with money, then you're definitely stepping into more of that neutral zone of power.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's an awesome place to be too.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So what do you have any personal practices that you incorporate into your life that might be worth sharing with anyone listening, that they could adopt or learn more about or just become in the know of?
Yeah, well, I know you talk a lot about regulating emotions, right? And so, apply that to your money. So when you're at the grocery store and you are looking at the organic broccoli versus the regular broccoli, what's coming up for you? How are you feeling in that moment? Are you feeling like that's not for you? Are you feeling like, okay, if I buy this, then that's going to be more expensive? Like, it's funny because like you hear a lot of people say, especially in the spiritual world, they're like, oh, money flows to me when I need it. I'm never without, and blah, blah, blah. And I love that. Look, I'm right on board with that. But then if you're like sitting there going, okay, well, I can't buy that. That's too expensive. Well, then you don't really believe that money flows to you when you need it. You don't really believe that, right? So catch yourself on those types of things. Mm-hmm. Are you cringing when you're standing at the checkout line and you're hoping it's $60, not $105? Like, where are these? Like, catch yourself with that, and breathe into that and start disconnecting and go, you know what? That means nothing about me. It means absolutely nothing about me.
Yeah. We call those in my line of work, stuck points. Find your stuck points. Find where there's resistance and energy, like negative or heavy or sour energy around something. So if that's the checkout line, like, okay, I recognize that. Okay. So once you leave the checkout line, then like get a little bit curious about that. Okay. That felt that way, but I don't want it to feel that way. So what is the opposite? What is the feeling you want to have? And then put that feeling in a statement or, in a sticky note or something where you constantly see it. So next time you go to the grocery store, you have that reminder of like, I'm not going to, not this is what I want to feel. This is what I'm shaping and changing into.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we could apply that exactly to the checkout. So, okay. So if you feel that way, what's going to cause me not to feel that way? So, would that be having $1,000 extra in the bank account at all times that you don't tap into, so that if you do, buy something extra at the grocery store, you don't have to worry about it? Is it staying within, okay, I only want to spend a certain amount? What amount is that? Like, bring some definition into it and some specificity. That's a hard word to say, because people stay in fear because they don't actually want to define the details.
Yeah.
Because when they define the details, that means they actually have to do something and take an action item.
Right. Here's the neuroscience behind that for all of you who are like, yeah, that woo-woo stuff. Here's why the woo-woo works. Your brain, when you plant a thought, it's like planting a memory. You're planting this seed. And when you keep going back to that, so when you use that sticky note and you keep seeing it, or you at least bring that stuck point to awareness, and then you're intentional about changing it, it keeps hitting that seed that you planted. Essentially, you can't kind of like keep watering it. Or it's like a dirt road, like you drive down it, you've got these lanes and you want to make a new road, while your car keeps pulling you back into the old road. Your car keeps pulling you back in the old road. But the more you're consciously aware of driving on the new road, the new pathway will get worn down. And eventually what will happen is the new pathway will be the main pathway, and the old one will just wear away. It'll be washed away by weathering and whatever. Your brain works the same way. So when we create that new pathway, when we create that new belief, and we're constantly aware of it, we're intentional about it, we visually see it, your brain naturally starts to move your actions in that direction. So you can say it's woo-woo, you can say it's spiritual, whatever, but there is scientific evidence behind this that your brain works in your favor when you plant that seed and you keep going back to it.
Yeah. And I love the way you explain that. Yes, that's absolutely amazing. Our integrator, so for Financial Story, Leanne, Leanne. So when she first started working with me, she was like, just sort of, they look at their checking account. She and her husband would look at their checking account and be like, can we afford this? Can we buy this? The kids need extra pair of whatever, we need to do this. Even on Thanksgiving, they would feel stressed out because they were spending like double on the grocery bill in Thanksgiving, right? Mm-hmm. And they had done sort of minimum stuff for retirement, but they really didn't have any extra. Well, then she started using the money management system inside of Financial Story, right? YNAB. And you talk about a shift, you talk about that new paved road. Yeah. So now she checks it. She loves it. It's like a game to her now. And it's funny because she's like, I cannot believe how much money I have in my account now, all because she chose to, like you said, pave that new road, right? I think the other day she was like, I just have $5,000. I don't even know what to do with it now. And I'm like, that is such a great feeling. And then this last Thanksgiving, so she's been doing it for about a year now. So this last Thanksgiving, it was funny because they had a Thanksgiving goal, like, you set up a goal in YNAB. And so the money's already there, so you don't have to worry about it. And her husband, like they bought, they sort of went all out and they bought like a honey baked ham or whatever. And then, which they wouldn't normally do. So they did that because they were all ready and prepared. Yeah. And then he went and he put it in the refrigerator in the outside garage. Well, then the refrigerator broke. And so then they got ready to go to have Thanksgiving, and everything was like ruined. But it was funny because she goes, I wasn't even worried about it because we had plenty of money in there to go and buy another one. Otherwise, like their whole Thanksgiving would have been ruined. So you know what I'm saying? Like,
So amazing. And this is a great example, because so like sometimes people are like, well, you're like this high, you're at these advanced levels. I'm like, we didn't start there. She didn't
Right.
start there. She didn't
Right.
start with $5,000 extra dollars. She's looking at paycheck to paycheck and like constantly looking at accounts. So, we all started somewhere.
We
So I
all
think,
started somewhere. I started $15,000 in debt and a truck that I could barely get to work in. So we all started somewhere.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
your personal practice to adopt here, whoever is listening, is when you feel that resistance or you feel that strong, especially around money, with your emotions, pause and kind of feel like, just get curious about what's going on there and what the stuck point is, define it, and then work on shifting and changing it. Okay, Elizabeth. So if someone wanted to get started with any of this, or just shifting or changing or money, understanding it, investing, whatever it may be, what would you suggest should be someone's first step if they don't really have much, if any, knowledge about any of this?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, and this is again going back to how wealthy people think versus the rest of the world. It is time to set the bar higher. So whatever you have going on in your life now, I mean, we're looking around us and clearly everything in our world is changing.
Yep.
And so, the snow globe has been shaken.
Yep.
So don't continue on with the same money habits and practices that you have right now. It's a great opportunity for you to set the bar higher in terms of kind of what we said at the beginning, which is what percentage am I not actually going to go out and give some other company? Because that's really what you're doing. You're spending all your time and energy working, and then you're going out and just giving it to someone else.
Yep.
That's really it. I mean, you're getting some things in return, but it's questionable whether you need every single thing of those things that you're spending money on, right? So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, don't get hung up if you're in debt or you're not in debt. Again, don't pat yourself on the back. Don't beat yourself up. Use that as a point of neutrality. Debt, actually, if you have debt, then it got you to where you are now. And you're sitting here now and you're listening to this amazing podcast with Lauren, and you found her and all that. So, be grateful for the fact that you are here now and that you have the ability to change this. Because the reality is, us listening to this right now, we don't realize how fortunate we really are. There are 4.5 billion people in the world who can't even have a bank account.
Yeah.
And then here we have everything at our fingertips to go out and to actually put money into buying into successful companies. So instead of going out and buying the pair of Nikes, buy the pair of Nikes when you can put $20 into Nike stock. Like, challenge yourself, set the bar higher with, like you said, these micro decisions.
Yep.
That will be life-changing over time. That will aggregate, and it will have a snowball effect in your life.
And I'm a prime example. And I know I've shared a little bit about my childhood trauma and things like that on here, but not necessarily from the money standpoint. I was raised by a single mother didn't take alimony, didn't take child support. In fact, from the little bit of information I have from her, like, didn't even have access to the bank account, the marriage, the joint account. She couldn't see it. Even though she was an RN, she was making probably more money than my father at the time, couldn't. So she had to like work extra hours, hide money in the house enough to rent a place so that we could move out and she could get a divorce. And I then was in a situation with a single mother and very little finances and someone who didn't understand money well. Because at that point, how was that 30, 35, 40 many years ago, a lot of them didn't have access to information like this, or weren't taught about money, or, weren't trusted with money and all these things. So then, I'm on my own with my mother, single mother, not much money, trying to survive. She's trying to emotionally survive and survive enough to like feed us and all these things. And I go through high school, I go through college, all these things. And I'm like, I don't understand money. I don't do well with money. I'm very fearful of money. It's always scarcity. It's always like there's never enough. And that went into, gosh, I don't know. I mean, after college and into the work, even when I was working, I was like, money was going to pay off all these debts and things. And I just felt like every day when I got a paycheck, I'm like, well, there it goes. So this went well into my young adulthood until I finally was like, no, this is enough. Like, I will not continue to live this life. And I will not have my children live this life. And I also believe that my mother is an amazing human who deserves more than this. So I'm going to improve her life. So for anyone who doesn't know my background, like I didn't start from anywhere of privilege where I was a very lost soul in many, many ways. And today, now, I'm doing quite well, and have a lot of people around me to thank for that. But just a prime example of what it might look like to go from nothing to something.
Yes, absolutely. It's such an amazing story. You have such an amazing story. And do you feel like that point where you shifted into that, raising the bar, do you feel like there was a certain level of letting go that had to happen in that moment as well?
Oh yeah, there was lots of I had to hire a therapist to help support all of this, even though it's just, it bubbles up so many things. And even if you are not a person raised in a traumatic childhood, there are always some level of traumas that come from our childhood, like even things that are very minimal. I mean, emotional abuse, that like yelling, a family that yells at their kids, that is emotional abuse. You may not think that has an impact on you as an adult. It does. And your parents aren't bad people because they did those things. What we don't know, we don't know. But I would encourage everyone to dig into that work. And even if it wasn't family related, it might have been community related or church related, or there's stress and trauma from somewhere, and there's always things that we can be doing to get better and grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So all right. Now that I just unloaded my whole life.
I love it. I love it. That's what happens with you. That's what happens with you and I, right?
Shedding lots of layers. You'll have to shed lots of layers, and it's good. It's freeing to take off that weight and let it loose. So I would encourage you to do it.
Yes.
Do the work. So if someone's maybe not quite ready to take the first step, but they just want some information, they want some resources or recommendations, where would you point them?
Well, I do a lot of stuff on Instagram. So they could follow me on Instagram if they wanted to do that, and just start learning from there. I talk about this stuff. A lot of times, this happens with anything. You just need to hear it a few times. I know I posted something this morning, and it's someone who's been, in Financial Story for a year now. And just something she said, second to last paragraph, just really moved her. Right. So it's like, I would say put yourself in the environment, even if it's not me, if it's someone else, someone that you resonate with. But I think that you have to energetically resonate with the person, because I think that's why people, I think that's why there's so much financial information out there and nobody does anything with it, because they don't feel connected to the person that they're actually learning from.
Right.
And if you don't feel that energetic connection, money is such a deep scarcity fear thing for us, that there's no way in hell that if you feel afraid with money, that you're going to make some pivotal money decision based on something you heard with someone that you don't even connect with. So I would say, have that be your first bridge, is like, who am I going to settle in with? And I think the second thing is be open to it, because the world right now looks nothing like the world did when your parents were teaching you about money. And just like you said, that it's not that our parents were wrong if they yelled. Same thing. It's not that our parents were wrong. They were teaching us the best that they could. But you got to think about it. Your parents, they could not recreate what they had based on their information if they were starting from today. Houses don't cost $50,000 anymore. And so, you know what? Let's just all acknowledge that, and let's just let it go. There's no blame here, but know that it is your responsibility to right now in this moment layer on new money stories. Otherwise, you're trying to win the race with a Model T Ford, and you're just going to struggle. You're just going to continue to struggle.
Yeah, I agree. Got some back into my work, intergenerational or transgenerational trauma, we call it. I would say like beliefs that we carry from our family that we aren't even aware of. And I think that's what we're really touching on right now, is like break those patterns, break those beliefs for yourself, for your kids, for the future of society. Lots of reasons to do that.
Yes, absolutely. So I would say start there with getting some exposure to an environment, a money environment. And then the second thing that I would say, just, to add on to this, would be, really, really dial in on your cost of living. I think that, the future that we have coming up, we're going to see a lot of changes coming up, right? We're on the edge, we're on the crossroad of digital currency here, decentralized finance, all of that. And the winners of the game are definitely going to be people who own assets. Because, I won't get into the logistics of it, but, like smart contracts and all that, it's just going to be easier to loan out and leverage anything that you own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, get yourself into a position where you can become an owner of something, whether that's a stock, whether that's, a tiny house, it doesn't matter, like something, own something, and start moving yourself towards that and prioritize that. And it doesn't matter if what you did yesterday, it doesn't matter those decisions.
Yep. I agree. I know you said it earlier, Instagram, but where can people find and follow that? What are they looking for when they're looking for your work, or ways to find you, contact you, follow you?
So it's Instagram, just first and last name. So it's Elizabeth Ralph, all one word. So they can do that on Instagram. If you can't find that, then you can always go to myfinancialstory.com. So, right now, Financial Story is open. It's open for another 2 days. And then after that, we'll have a wait list for the next time that we open it. So we open it like usually twice a year. And then that gives us time to concentrate on students and do all of the things, the fun things that we love to do with our investing membership and all that stuff. So, and it also allows, I do like to go on vacation every once in a while too. Right? I have to like take my own advice and, also manage my own energy as well. So yes. I do love doing it though. So that does become a challenge for me because I love what I do. I do feel like, I am here to help good people be wealthy. And I wake up in the mornings and I just can't wait to do it. So for me to take, I have been doing that, you've probably seen on Instagram, the Airstream. So I've been taking the Airstream out more and doing these 2 to 3 days. I've even got it hooked up where I can work as long as I'm not too far out, as you know, like I can work. And then I ride horses. So, a lot of what you get on the Instagram is a lot of horse stuff and Cow Lucy and all of that. We don't just talk about money because wealth comes in many ways, And
I will make sure all of this is linked in the show notes. And for those of you that are listening now, the program will still be open. For those of you that are listening when this podcast episode launches in late November, it will be closed. But what if someone wants to join and listening in November and they're like, oh no, I missed it. What will it circle back around?
Yeah, so we're probably going to open it again end of December, beginning of January, because it's people love getting on track for the beginning of the year, and money, it's usually like either money or health, right? And so it's a really great way for people to start off on the right foot that way. So I would say get into the energy of it and join us then as well.
Cool. So if you missed us right now in September, then you can catch again in December. And I would say definitely don't wait, because although the program may show up again, what won't come back to you is the time that you have lost when you didn't buy in. So
yes, I know. And that costs people a lot. I mean, even since the last time that we opened Financial Story, I think the market's gone up 20%.
Wow.
So, it's just crazy. Like it is costing people. It is costing people to wait, and don't get fussed up on the amount either, right? You and I've talked about this, Lauren, where people are like, oh, I don't have enough money to invest. Like you're amplifying money. And so if you give someone $100 and they give you back 120, that's still a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yep. And you'll learn all about that in the program. I've gone through the program. I don't know if I said that or not. I've gone through the program. I've also been coached and mentored by Elizabeth. So, like I said, my belief systems changed, but therefore my knowledge changed, my outcomes have changed. So, as someone who didn't know anything about money, not even just like how to utilize credit and how to pay down debt, I now invest in my own stocks and I choose those stocks, and I don't use, I have my own retirement programs and other sources of investing, but there is a portion of my portfolio that I'm like, I want control of this, mostly because I'm eager to learn, I'm excited, and I feel comfortable doing that. So for those of you like, stock investing is so far out of my reach, I thought so too. And then I did it, and I'm like seeing the results of it, and it's kind of fun.
You're doing amazing. You are doing amazing. And I kind of saw that in you at the beginning, because like I was like, oh my God, she's so incredibly bright. You're so driven. And I was like, oh my gosh, just wait until she starts applying this to the stock market, which is like, it's really is a fun game, isn't it?
It is. It is. It is. It's not as scary as y'all think it is.
It's not. No,
It's actually quite easy to understand.
huh?
It's actually quite easy to understand. And if you can get over the emotional part of it, you'll be fine.
Yes. And even this is so funny because people are so afraid of it that they spend their lifetime like standing on the sidelines, like not investing. But even if you had sold on the worst day in 2020, like literally the bottom of the pandemic, like, oh my God, you would have lost 34%. I mean, that's not great, but we haven't even seen that in our lifetime, I'm talking. But if you had not sold and you had left that and you just ridden that through, I mean, you would be up, what, 40-50% now on your money. So
Yep. Who
yes,
sold? The people that were emotional and the people that were
exactly.
scarcity mindset. And if they had not tapped in and been aware of that emotion, they would have held on and they would have seen the reverse come back around, because the universe, the world, energy, all of it works in cycles, and you have to trust the cycles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, before we jump to our try it at home tip, is there anything else that we did not chat about that you wanted to chat about or share before we kind of wrap?
I just hope that everyone listening to this is seeing that this is not something outside of you. This is something that the work that you've been doing, listening to Lauren and the work that you've been doing on yourself, like your whole journey into greater awareness, your spiritual journey, that has already given you the tools. You're closer than you think. I mean, all you have to do is just really, as I said, set the bar and just let money come into that world. Stop seeing it as this foreign outside thing that is connected to your identity. Instead, see it as an energetic, beautiful, abundant tool, because every dollar that comes into our lives is a gift, is an absolute gift. And we can really do well for ourselves by honoring that.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you all know that when we wrap up an episode, we always do a try it at home tip so that you can leave here. And I feel like you've already had quite a few practical tips given to you in this one, and resources recommended, all these things. But the one thing Elizabeth and I talked about before starting the episode was forget saving and teach people how to grow money. So maybe Elizabeth, you just want to talk a bit about that and what that means for someone that's like, what? Huh? Wait, I've been told to save my money. I've been told to put it in savings accounts and this and that. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, growing up here in the US, I mean, we are taught, as I said at the beginning, you have your money and you spend it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that parents, they did a really good job of telling us, oh, you need to save some of your money. Even if they weren't doing it, they still told us that as kids, right?
Yeah.
Well, the fact is cash loses value over time. It's actually lost 7% a year over the last decade, and that's even increasing. So what that means is that your purchasing power, you're losing purchasing power with cash. So things are becoming more expensive for you to buy. So while you might have that same $1,000 in the bank account, the things that you would use for that $1,000 to buy have become more expensive. So the only way to keep up with that is to actually take a portion of that and invest it. So savings is not the way to go anymore. Actually taking money and growing money is the way. So think of it like we've moved away from this static savings account. And now the way that we need to shift our thinking is, how can I build a dynamic savings account? Even if some of it is still in cash, we need to put a portion of that in the market or in some type of asset so that it's actually growing along with everything else getting more expensive. Then our money is keeping up with that.
Yeah, I agree. And don't think too, for those of you listening, like investing is not just stock market. Investing is a spectrum.
Anything.
So when you're like, oh, I don't want to take my savings and put it in the stock market, you don't have to. I think you should learn about it. You should be in the know about it, but there are other forms of investing outside the stock market when we're talking about that.
Absolutely. You can invest in someone else's business. You can invest in land. You can do all of these things. Anything that it becomes a cash generating asset. So anything that you can actually trade your cash for and then earns you a yield in return into the future, is considered an investment. So be creative about it.
Yeah, just to throw you all a couple examples. I don't know where everyone's located. I think we're all over the states and the world, but I mean, one thing for me was like, I really love animals as well. And I was like, I used to have a dog, I don't have a dog anymore. So I started just doing a little bit on the side, just some Rover. If you're familiar, it's a website that allows people that do or do not have dogs to host dogs in your house, watch them for the day, watch them for a couple of days, and you get paid to do it. And I'm like, it's not that much work. You take them on a little walk. It's good for me to get outside. I get to play with dogs. It taps into my playful side and gets me off my computer. So, it's a very micro level of this, but that's generating for me. And that's an additional side income that I can then put somewhere else. So maybe I want to, do that, or maybe I have my car and I want to, if you've heard of Turo, rent it out, and that's generating some money as well. So Rover's probably a worse example because it's trading time there, but for Turo, if you have a car, a decent car, and you rent it out to people, it's covered by their insurance, covered by your insurance. If you don't need the car and you're going to be home anyhow, or you have a bike or something else, like that can generate some income for you on the side that you can have and then invest somewhere else, or put towards buying a house, or put towards whatever, a rental property, whatever you want. There are ways to get started that are more simple than you may think.
Absolutely. And I love those examples that you gave. And you're right. Even the Rover, you can take that money and put it in the market.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. I love those examples.
And I get from it as well. It's more than just financially. So there's that benefit.
Totally. Well, you incorporated your why, right? Because you love animals. So, that just goes back to kind of what we said before. Let that be the driving factor. What do you love to do?
And helping others.
And how can you, incorporate that into your wealth plan? Let your love and desire of something actually dictate the wealth plan, not the other way around.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So much good information. Whoever's listening, you better go back and listen to this again. It's so good. All right. Well, if you want to learn more, you're going to have to go find Elizabeth and tune in and probably get into her program. But don't forget your try at home tip, which is forget saving and teach them how to grow money, and lock in what you learned today by commenting, leaving testimonial, whatever it is, just something that is a reflection on what you listened to in our comments below. And until next episode, I am Lauren Spiegelmeier, and thanks, Elizabeth, for coming on here and sharing your vast knowledge with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This is great.